Adam, can you tell us what labeling of interest means?
Sure. All right. So we've been discussing some certain topics that we basically want to bring up and have a little discussion about. Labeling of interest is basically a very popular practice of modern society, where instead of viewing things as I can say a part of the whole, we tend to, because this is how the brain works, we tend to organize and categorize nearly every phenomena or experience into these subdivisions, and this kind of mentality creates things like separation, dualities, polarizations between thoughts, cultures, belief systems, political groups. It spawns things like races and or the concept of races. It causes separations between people who have different interests in arts, like music and things like that. So we're gonna plan on discussing this and how people just tend to label or categorize or be judgmental or critical out of things because they are in a sense like different, rather than seeing things as a whole and as a collective phenomena of experience.
Yeah, so that's that's basically what it is. Let me change the light. One of the things, I don't know if you guys want to stand here all day. I'm going to go back to working. One of the things that like the subcategories we were talking about was the gaming culture and like the whole nerdiness type of thing. Chris, I know you had a couple thoughts on that you want to share.
Yeah, actually, I get very irritated when I hear people use the term gamer. I don't like associating people underneath the term gamer, and I don't like the fact that playing video games has spawned its own subculture within society. It really irks me, because when you look at different interests, such as, for example, playing sports, I don't know why tennis came to mind first, but tennis, say two people go to play tennis to kill some time because they're bored. Do you automatically label them as sportsers when they go out and do that? Such a stupid term to use, sportsers, but just if you can get the general idea of what I'm trying to get at. Well, not necessarily, because it's such a natural thing for us to do in our society, to play sports. I've got nothing against doing it, and I'm sure you guys don't have, any strange thoughts about playing sports either. And that's a general consensus felt upon human society in general. Athletic interests, like sports, for example, it's just so widely accepted that it's not given its own label specifically. It's just a natural, fun thing to do, a hobby. And that's exactly what I would prefer playing video games to fall under. Just a hobby you can do in your spare time, not something to be labeled as specifically gaming. You play Call of Duty, you're a gamer. You've built a PC so you could game, you're a gamer. You play Angry Birds, you're a gamer. I hate that. I hate that. And I shouldn't say hate, but I strongly dislike that.
There are those expectations that people made, like most people don't call people who just casual play Angry Birds, gamers, but they're doing exactly what gamers are doing. So, are by rule of judgment of label, like, shouldn't they be considered gamers too?
Exactly.
Yeah, and like the whole, you could there's a lot of I know people argue about how there's a difference between someone who plays sports, like using that example, just giving the other side. There's a difference between someone who plays sports and then an athlete. Like if someone who plays sports casually, are they considered an athlete?
That's a good point as well.
where's the line? Like, where do you draw the line?
This reminds me also when you brought up the tennis and how would you call them sporters. It reminds me of a lot of not conversations but topics that would come up a lot. Because I would be, you guys know, but for the sake of the audience, I was in drumline, and oftentimes, like in my psychology class, my senior year, I was professor wanted to bring up, or not professor, our teacher wanted to bring up the question if activities like band and cheerleading were considered sports. What? Yeah, I'm in the wrong mindset right now. Yeah. So yeah, he brought up the topic of is activities like band and cheerleading considered sports. Some of the people in the class were saying, yeah, they're considered sports, and I was kind of joking around, and I was saying, no, it's not a sport at all. Carrying a 30-pound drum on my back and running around, not sport. but our, excuse me, I'm gonna move my computer because it's heating up a bit. The teacher, he actually said how he doesn't consider it a sport, and then he started to define what a sport is, and later on I thought about what he said and kind of realized the kind of flaws in his argument, basically. He was saying how a sport is something that you compete in, and then we were like, oh, what they compete in competitions too, like cheerleaders and the band drumline people, they have their competitions that they go to, and he's like, yeah, but it's different. In the sport, you have to react to your surroundings, and you're playing against a group, whereas in cheerleading or band or whatever, you're doing your thing by yourself, and you don't have to go against another team. But then I should have brought this up at the time, but then I realized, like, what about racing in like swimming, swim racing or track racing? You're not competing against someone, you're just competing against your own time, just like you're competing against your own score in cheerleading or band or whatever. And that's still considered a sport. It's still physical, just because it has music or dance accompanied to it. It's somehow labeled as an activity instead of a sport. And there's just so much complexities because our culture is geared to see things a certain way, and we don't have that a collective, holistic kind of view of how things are. We just separate and divide things into these complicated groups with these expectations or exceptions. Sorry.
I feel like people want to label things just because it makes it easier for them to accept them. Like they don't want to try to think about more complex things. I mean, I can understand that because sometimes you have so much else going on already that you don't want to have to think more, I guess, to put it bluntly. But I feel like people want to label things and put things in categories automatically. But then obviously it's hard to do that because there's so many things that start to overlap with each other, and where do you draw that line? I mean, you can even, if you look at, there's a lot of all the gaming competitions, they've been calling those like esports, but there's no, aside from moving moving a mouse and pressing the keys on the keyboard, there's no extreme physical competition going on there. So does that make it a sport, or does that not make it a sport?
Mm-hmm. And also, on the topic of the psychology professor saying that cheerleading and band isn't a sport, he mentioned how in a sport you have to react to the things going around you, and on several times I've like during practice and during shows, people have fallen and they've had to recover, or something would go wrong and they have to act quickly and decisively to figure out how to fix it, so they not only don't help themselves from not getting trampled by these people with these big instruments and stuff like that, but to save the score, save what you're doing. Is that any different than swimming? If you have a horrible kickoff, and you have to recover from it or react to it, it's just it's these stigmas,
Chris, what about you? You got anything to add to that?
Not really. You guys are summing this up in a nice little package. I'm happy to. Man, that sounded lame.
Nice little package.
I wish I had more to say.
A nice little package. Thank you.
I'll kill you. But no, you guys have really said what I've been thinking, and I don't have much else to say on it, really, to be honest.
We can bring up more kind of examples of how these kind of divisive separation techniques are used, like in categorizing people's religions into groups, rather than the existence of organized religion. I don't really want to get into it because it's kind of touchy, though, but for the viewers, you can look up Krishnamurti and his discussion on why he disbanded the Order of the Star.
Hopefully we
basically
can put a link.
To sum up along, you could put in the link or something in the description, but to sum up the speech that he made, he's basically saying that an individual who follows someone else fails to follow the truth, that fails to follow their own, kind of idea. Religion shouldn't be a group or a community where people with like minds can go and get together and kind of it's going to sound kind of harsh, but kind of their circle jerk philosophy. But it's supposed to be something. It's supposed to be something Okay. It's supposed to be something personal growth or insight that takes effort. He used an analogy. He said one must ascend to the mountaintop, rather than having it pulled down there and made a plaything for those who are weak. And it sounds like I'm being very critical. I'm not trying to say religion is a horrible thing, because there's many beautiful things from religion, especially Buddhism, Hinduism, Shintoism. The philosophies and lifestyles are highly amendable, but you don't have to call them these things. We could just say, this is what I do and this is what I believe. But the weirdness and verboseness of actually discussing what people think and actually communicating, instead of saying I'm Christian or I'm liberal or I'm Republican, these little titles, they're just frankly bullshit. Like, just say what you believe, or instead of giving me a title or a little label. It doesn't really mean anything. Someone like, oh, what's your stance on this? Or like, oh, I'm a Republican. Like, that doesn't mean jack shit.
That doesn't mean jack shit.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I know I said this already, but I think it just because people see it as easier to do that than to try to explain the intricacies of what they believe in. Yeah,
and it's kind of adaptive, and by that I mean, not everyone's gonna have the time or the patience to discuss every little philosophy that they have, so they have these titles and these communities that they go to where they can share like-minded interests. But it's so normal for us, we don't even question how weird or even degenerative it might be to our thought processes. But it is harmful because it's limited and almost elitist in certain cases, because you have to be part of the group or part of the belief system to be in the group, and that's not how thought or philosophy is supposed to be. It's supposed to be an individual ascension or a journey or process, not a club.
Yeah, and I think
that's just another example.
Yeah, like a good example I just thought of would be, like if you told someone, like, I dance, I know I'm b-boy and background stuff for the audience, but like, if I told someone, yeah, I'm a dancer, they wouldn't know what kind, but then they'd, so they'd start making assumptions and stuff, and like, say I said I'm a dancer, and they said, oh, you do like ballet or something like that, and that's not what I do at all, but that's like it's like a label, and so they automatically assume there's or what if there's a type of dance that they don't even know what it is, and because they don't know what it is, they automatically assume that I'm one of those types of dancers that they do know what it is.
Yeah.
So it's easier to say dancer, but it's definitely not as profound or as good a description at all.
And it's part of our language, we have words for a reason. We have these words. That's why we don't have long ass descriptions for everything, and that's important. But we have to realize that when we use these words, we don't use them divisively, if that makes sense. Because I know there's going to be some of those people watching that say, "You dumb shit. That's part of the English language. Get used to it," or something like that. But,
I mean, it's there.
It's more than that.
I think it's there for efficiency, because I mean you can't, like you said, you can't just go around saying like, oh hey, my name's so and so, and then give like a full biography. That's just not it's not time efficient, and it's not gonna it's not gonna work.
I think the issue came out of the effect, or it came out of the quality, if that makes sense. What I mean is because we have words in oral language and kind of labels naturally in language. We tend to confuse them for being separate, and then we develop these stigmas and these kind of expectations and kind of build these understandings of what things are, of what it is. Sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought.
Is it that Pokemon Center you're building?
Yeah.
Is it distracting you?
No, I looked over and I saw Philip building a gym in blue, and I was like, I didn't know what that was at first, and then I got distracted. But yeah, I remember it was just basically, it is part of the language, but it's because it's part of the language that we have become conditioned and desensitized towards the idea of separation, the illusion of separation, and that's a big part of it. I think we should address the opposing viewpoints, because I know there's going to be some of those people who are strongly, adamantly against our ideas. I think we should add some defense.
Well,
not kind of apology.
Yeah, I want to make it known that we're not doing this to try to convince people necessarily. As with anything else, you should.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
As with anything else, you should take what you hear with a grain of salt. I think that's the correct terminology for it.
I think that's right. A grain of I think that's right.
Grain of salt.
Grain of.
I don't know. I mean, you get like a grain of paprika or something if you want.
Grain of shit.
No, don't take it with a grain of shit.
No, that's not a good idea. Don't do that. Oh, music. We were going to talk more about. I've noticed very recently there are these kind of a polarization between kind of traditional music lovers and the kind of people who are more interested in the new things coming out and the kind of popular genres like dubstep and electronic music. A lot of music majors actually that I know of, they on Facebook I would often see them sharing photos like talking about how dubstep isn't real music and things like that, and because these are the people who have studied in actual academic like in academia the kind of classical and neoclassical romanticism era music pieces, and they've grown to appreciate it, and it's because they're familiar with it, and that's a big thing to do actually. We'll probably talk about this in the next video because we're running time, but familiarity is a big thing about judgment and separation. So yeah, these music majors and people who appreciate the old classical music, they look critically upon the new versions, and then there are those people who are more interested in the popular groups that look upon classical music as pretentious and annoying and hard to listen to and hard on the ears and stuff like that. And it's simply because they don't really understand it. I think I spoke to you, Chris, about this participant observation, where to understand a phenomenon you have to experience it, and a lot of experience goes hand in hand with familiarity, and then we often judge and label these things into these kind of being different, like as if classical music is different from dubstep music, and it does sound very different, but it is all music and it is a part of it. It should all be respected, because as long as someone calls it art, it's considered art, But people want to limit it out of because they want things to be familiar with them. And they say, no, this is only music, and this is only art, and this is only acceptable, and this is wrong, and this is only the right religion, and things like that. It's just they don't understand it, they don't experience it, and become familiar.
Yeah, it's like, how can you tell, like, just on the topic of music, how can you say what is actually music, like you said? I mean, you could play what sounds like a cacophony of sound, and someone could say, well, that's music, I'm enjoying that, or I appreciate that. And you could say, well, all it is a bunch of sound. But he said, yeah, but it's art, so it's like, well, that's about it. You can't really say either way.
Reminds me of the thing that Penn said. I don't know his last name. He's the magician guy. He did Penn and Teller.
Oh yeah.
He did. There was this thing that was this image that was going on about how he kind of in defense of people who play video games, talking about how people who are critical, like the older generation, saying that video games are a waste of time and they don't make sense. It's because they don't understand it. They don't understand the intricacies of it and the dynamics, and how it's not only an enjoyable activity, but it's part of it builds communities, just like a lot of activities and hobbies that people are into. and yet they judge it and they label it because they don't understand it because they're not familiar with it.
Yeah, and we're not trying to like say this only goes one way. I mean, there's a bunch of younger people that think that anything like older is, just a waste of time, or they don't appreciate
I
it.
said a few many times.
Yeah. Sorry. I think that's about it. I think that'll wrap it up for this time. So yeah, well, anything that we referred to, we'll try to put a link or something in the description. And that, if you listen to this entire thing, thank you very much.
I want to apologize for any wrong or inaccurate information I might have said. I'm do better writing things down because I could go and revise it. I probably said some inaccurate information, especially when I summarize Christian Murdy's amazing speech. I'd probably do very good justice to. I might have even analyzed it incorrectly, but feel free to correct because I'm not used to this open speaking type forum. Writing things.
The goal is to hopefully.
I couldn't agree more with you on writing.
Hopefully, I mean, besides helping people to, I guess, just think more. Not that we think people are stupid, but it's always nice to have a little bit of intellectual activity. And hopefully we can have one YouTube comment section that doesn't have a bunch of immature comments and actually has some type of interesting discussion. I think that'd be really cool.
Thumbs those up.
I think that's about it for this episode. Hopefully we can do more.
Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.